Well, hey everyone, I'm Stuart, and in this video we take a bogan bush bike and see what it takes to get it back on the road. The idea of these videos is to get you inspired to do a bit of DIY yourself, so I hope you like it. Sit back and I'll see you at the end. Well, I'll make this quick. Why a KDX 250, you might ask? It's not a super bike and it's not a CR 500, is it? But I think everyone's got a soft spot for a particular bike, and this happens to be mine. So this is the KDX 250 SR. So this was the road legal version. And if you have a look here, here's a photo of me when I was 19 years old. I actually used this bike to go to work and back every day, or most days. So I do have a very soft spot for this particular bike. When this one came up for sale, I was quite quick to buy it with the intention of hopefully sorting it out and getting it back on the road and having a bit of fun riding it. So here we are. There ain't nothing to it but to do it, so let's get to it. Yeah, so today's job is just to pull the bike down. It's not getting a full resto, but we're just going to go over it and try to get this thing back on the road and licensed. Alright, we're just taking the wheels off because come and have a look at these rusting spokes. So even though the bike's not getting a resto, we're going to get a respoke just because the spokes are orange. So that should make the bike look a bit nicer. Okay, well the plan is, this bike is getting road registration, so I've got a lot of wiring repairs to do. I've just bolted on these new turn signals or indicators, but there's a lot of cut wires. Didn't even have a headlight or a speedo. I put the speedo on, but still I've got a couple of random wires there. Also got cut wires down here. I think I've bought a new horn. I'm hoping that that's the horn plugged in correctly there, but once again there's some wires hanging out, as is over here and to the rear. So what I've done is just hooked in 12 volts to this plug, which is the where the 12 volt out goes after being regulated by the regulator. So bear in mind this battery is pretty much flat, so there's not much there, but enough to light a light bulb or give me a reading on the multimeter. So I'm hoping this sort of makes it a bit quicker to fix all this wiring rather than start this bike up all the time inside the workshop. Okay, so you see the car battery's literally just wedged into the swing arm. It's actually not fully charged, it's pretty low, almost flat. Wouldn't start a car, but plenty of voltage here for what I'm doing. So this brown wire is on the positive, and I just connected it in. This is the 12 volt out from the rectifier. So 12 volt out, unplugged. So this is really the feed into the bike. So if I take this now, it took me a little while to work out what was going on, but the minute you plug in the voltage, and firstly I just wanted to tell you that I did start out just with a 9 volt battery, and I did some basic tests just to be sure, because I wasn't that confident. It's the first time I've ever done this before, but as I put this in, you might just hear the click of the relay. Can you hear that? I'll do it again. Listen. There it is. I'm pushing it in now. So the bike's got 12 volt on it now, and the relay making the noise is just this little one, this little relay here next to the CDI on the side of the airbox. And you'll see that I've got power there. Yeah, and just lastly, I'll just be referencing back to the schematic for this bike, which is actually quite easy to read. And I've done a couple of checks already, and on one turn signal, and the colours that I thought were right for that indicator are correct, so it looks like it shouldn't be too hard. So the first test is just this ignition line, because I had to buy one. Got one now, and I've just hooked it up, and it works, but it's got continuity. So there it is there, but that's left, so I guess that deadens the ignition, and that's open to get a spark to the engine. So as I pull all this apart, I see the previous guy did actually mark some things, like that says rear left and brake light, and this other one here had this on it. You can make that out. Rear right and tail light. And I also had a bit of tape on a couple of wires here, and that said brake light switch rear. So I've just bridged those for now. I'm going to have to run some new wires and then get the switch that mounts here and then goes down to the foot pedal. Another thing is, just don't take for granted like the old light actually works, and the new lights for that matter. Actually do a test. Like this one here is this came from Kawasaki. So this is the number plate light. So if we put that down there, straight on, and sure enough we have a working light. So what we can also do as an example is just quickly hook up these bullet connectors for this right rear indicator, and you see that works. So can just do quick tests, quickly did those, and we do have a brake light. And I already tested the other circuit for that brake light, and that is good as well. So it pays to do all these tests first when you're dealing with the unknown. Then I can wire it up as per the diagram, the wiring diagram I showed you before, per the wiring colours. And then we can actually do some tests with bike switches and such, and see what works and what doesn't work. And hopefully, if everything is just right, it should all work. All right, back in a minute. All is a bit of a mess wiring wise. I've got alligator clips and connectors all over the place, but that doesn't matter. I can sort that all out once I've got everything working. But I now have a neutral light. I did have to replace the globe in there because I had nothing initially. I now have indicators, and right, there we go, and also the horn. So that's great, the horn's working. So where I'm at now is everything I've done so far, I just cannot get power at the headlight wires, the license plate light wires, or either the tail light or brake light. Not getting any power at all. But what I have found, thanks to the schematic, is power comes up through this brown wire. So this is the harness going up to the headlight switch. So power comes in at the brown wire to the switch and comes back. So what I'll show you is the multimeter's on now, and I can show you on the other side of this plug coming in. See, well, almost 12 volts. That battery is flat, remember? So the power's coming into the switch, but when I look at the schematic, it says it comes back in on the red and, is it red and purple, I think it was, and I just can't get anything in return. So even moving the switch up and down, nothing. So I'm going to pull this switch apart and see what's going on, and then I think from there should be something at least to the headlight. Well, I won't go into full detail, but basically this little bracket was kind of bent in a bit, so not the full pressure on the switch wasn't there, plus it was dirty and the spring and everything needed to be cleaned. Now it works much better, and we come on. You get a tail light now, and also you can see the voltage is now at that plug, which means I should now have some voltages to work with on some of these wires and that, so I can get this headlight installed, and also the little they call it a city light, but I think in Australia we just used to call it a park light, the small globe that goes inside the headlight. So that's the next step. So as I'm working and preparing this harness, as I strip wires for soldering, they're all blackened, and you can't solder that, and I'm a bit dubious about just using a crimp connector. They're probably like this because they've seen moisture, so I'll show you the difference. I'll just give these a quick clean with a little bit of sandpaper, and I'll show you the difference, and then you can usually get solder to take. Okay, there's those two wires just been sandpapered a bit, so you see they're clean. Got to do that with almost every connection on this. The harness really isn't that great, or it's obviously seen a good amount of moisture with cut connections from the original ones that would have been moisture resistant. Well, everything now is working. Everything's just dummied up with alligator clips and dodgy connectors. The next thing is actually just get on with the proper repair of this harness now that I know where everything goes. And so what I'll do is I'll set up the GoPro overhead and get that done. I am just waiting on a new switch for the front brake, or I might just try and attempt the repair of the old one to get it working for now. Well, I don't think it was an option, but just changing over this rear guard on the KDX, and from DC Plastics you don't get these rear lugs, which the SR had. So that's a bit disappointing. I'll go ahead and fit it up anyway, but it's probably not going to be as rigid. I've got to drill the 4 holes for the tool bag, the holes for the tail light, a couple of holes up this end and in the side for frame mounting, and then just these wire holders. I'll transfer them over for the road legal model also. I've just made up this license plate bracket which also holds the license plate globe. The original one would have been plastic, but it's no longer available from Kawasaki. So this is the genuine one, as is this bracket. Came in a box of stuff from Japan. There was a welded on tang for a license plate that someone put on a long time ago. So I've just gone off that for now with nuts and bolts, made a bracket, and that's ready to go. So from here I've just got to route the wires, but the indicator wires, they come through this rear mudguard, and I'm replacing the rear mudguard, so that's next. I was having issues trying to work out how the rear brake light switch connects down the pedal. So there's this old bracket here which to me looked like the one that would take one of these style switches. Sorry, that hold it the other way, would go in like that, right? And then there's usually a spring and a wire comes down here, and there is this other little bracket here that would take the wire, I guess, or spring. But then I must be missing some kind of special linkage these had, and I just ended up thinking it was way too hard to make something myself, because it's got to clear this kickstart. So after posting my little dilemma on Facebook, a couple of guys chimed in saying, pressure switch. So here it is. Both of these items were about 15 bucks posted to my door, which is great. So in theory, this pressure switch just mounts here. So pressure switch in, run the cable up to where it needs to be, and that should actuate the rear brake light. So we'll call that an upgrade. I know it's not original, but I guess it is kind of a upgrade. Okay. All right, well that was a bit of a mission. I only just got this new switch in, the hydraulic pressure switch, you would call it. I had to do a bit of a bodgy, which I didn't like doing. I mean, I didn't have to cut anything, but I did just bend this bracket that holds the reservoir. Just cranked it a little bit so this would clear where the wires come out the top. And I also had to find a small bolt to put this on, which wouldn't clash with that, because it really is at the limit. There's no room there at all. So the wiring's routed down and then comes up, and I use this old clip here where I'll bring this up and take it and join it in to where it's got to go. So you can now see if I push the brake down. So that's great, worked first time. So this is the sort of thing that I'm dealing with. I just lost the use, well not lost the use, but the horn was working and then all of a sudden it stopped working, and it has been hanging here for a little while, but just hanging there and moving around a little bit shouldn't break a wire. And then sure enough, after going back to tracing wires of the handlebars and checking the handlebar switch, then I found the open wire was from up at the switch down to the horn here, and sure enough, this connector here, right where it clamps, the wire is just broken here where it flexes, and then that's dead. So I've got a new connector on there for now. And then a similar thing, well, lucky I've got this schematic because it did tell me that this blue and white wire is for the rear brake light, and I couldn't get that to work. But when I grounded it, well not grounded, when I connected it to the brown, when I connected this blue and white to the brown, the rear brake light would come on. But this was the brown wire that was taped up initially with this blue wire with the sticky tape on it that said tail light. If you connected this brown to it, nothing. Anyway, sure enough, tracing this wire into the harness just led me to find a broken wire. So, and this is the point here, this original crimp joint where we've got the heavier gauge brown coming in from the supply, and then it splits into, well, it should be 4 because we're missing one now, but splits into 4 smaller gauge brown wires, which sort of then feeds the bike in various places. But yeah, so this is all corroded and manky, so I'll have to split that now and redo this joint with the extra brown wire in it. So then I'm worried about a few of the other factory joints like this one, so I'll probably check over a few more while I'm at it, because I really don't want gremlins after I've finished with this wiring project. Hey Mitch, you're not scrubbing hard enough. Scrub harder. Harder. That's better. Oh look, you set the alarm off. That's good, Mitch. It's starting to look fresher already. All right, quickly stopping just to talk about some of the parts and where they came from. The front and rear wheels are back from getting a re-spoke. They look great. And these parts here, yeah, so when I bought the bike, it came with 4 tanks actually. So I am going to fit this one to start with, but I would like to get the original metal or steel tank resprayed. This one actually is good, it has no dents, but one of the fairing brackets has broken off, which I'll have to weld back on. This one's just covered in dents, and this one has a little split in it at the petcock, which kind of sucks, so I don't actually know if that can be repaired or not. Maybe it can. I got 2 expansion chambers with the bike. This is actually a really good one. Just one sort of dent in it here, which I'll blow out. The expansion chamber on the bike at the moment is the really heavy type, the original, I'm guessing, so I will leave that on the bike for registration purposes. Also, the bike came with 2 seats. Came with this cut down one here and a second one. I think this had black fabric on it. I can't remember now, but I have put the new cover on it. The cover just came from eBay for like 50 or 60 bucks or something from memory. I will eventually put the strap on, and also just talking about these small parts here, I did have to source another one of these. This is the big headlight that these bikes came with, the big glass headlight. So you can see the damage here. This was actually probably the hardest part to find another one of. So I did find another one that actually does have a few small scratches and bruises in it, but it will do. If anyone knows of where I can get a really nice one of these, please let me know. New mirrors came from Kawasaki. This was still available through Kawasaki for the rear disc brake. I do have to replace this rear reserver because the one on the bike has snapped off. This is the rear reserver cover that was actually missing. This came from eBay all the way from UK. We've also got some other little bits that came in the Japan box, including the new side stand. This chain guard here, this was another really hard to find part, but this came from a wrecker in New Zealand for about 75 bucks posted, I think. Obviously nuts and bolts, that's just an eBay box. You don't want to be putting old dog bolts back in the bike as you go. I'm looking forward to fitting this old front disc cover. I really like these. They really got that kind of retro look, don't they? And the photo of my old bike actually has one of these, so I kind of had to have that. The Speedo, I actually bought a couple of these. Mine was actually missing. I just had remnants of this plastic bracket on my bike, and maybe the neutral light was still there. So I sourced two of these from a site called Bai, and that's a buying site out of Japan. So obviously there's still a lot of these bikes in Japan and being wrecked, and they probably didn't suffer the abuse we give them here. So this was actually quite cheap for about 100 bucks landed. Really happy with that. And just onto the plastics, I'll be reusing these plastics I have here, the radiator shrouds, and I've got a couple of new side covers from DC Plastics. I did fit up the new rear guard already. I probably won't be using this front guard. I'll just leave the one that's on the bike for now. So yeah, all right, well, and what we'll talk about as well is how we've just taken the bike out for a bit of an alley bright wash. I really like this stuff. It's just a good way to brighten everything up, and it actually does work. A substitute for this alley bright is actually just a phosphoric acid solution, but do your own research on that. I've been using phosphoric for a while on a variety of different projects. Works really well. I think this alley bright has something different in it, perhaps slightly different mixture. Works really well. You normally have to do repeated applications of it though to get the desired effect you're chasing. You usually got to do a pre-wash to get any grease off, and then once it's dry, there's no point spraying this stuff on while it's already wet. It seems to work better sprayed on dry aluminium, and then you wash it off and just keep repeating the process. So all right, we'll move on now to assembling this bike back together. All right, well, this is where I had a little bit of luck on my side. So this is the steering lock, right? And I was missing the key. I didn't get any keys with this bike. So would you believe I do have a box of keys in a container from all the arcade machine stuff I do. I found this black key here was the only key I found that would actually fit, so it was, I guess, the right shape. It went in, it didn't immediately turn, but after a few minutes of persistent jiggling, I got it to turn, which meant I could then pull this out, take it to a locksmith who cut me some keys. So isn't that fantastic? Bit of persistence there and a bit of luck, obviously. So what I will do now is I'll reinstall this, and I don't have this little swinging cover. That might have to come from another bike one day. If I get the opportunity of a wrecked bike that has the little swinging cover, that would be installed here. I might have to put something in temporarily in this hole just to make sure that this barrel can't pop out at any stage. So yeah, I've got a, well, I should have a working steering lock as well, so yay. So assembling this steering lock You see how this works is when the key's out, the little roll pin is turned, means it can't come out, but when you do put the key in and turn, that's when it's aligned and the barrel can be pulled out. So you do have to have something in here to stop the barrel coming out, and obviously when the bike was new, I'm sure it's like a swivel plate, but I don't have that, and I've got no wrecked bikes here to pull one off of, so it's literally just going to be a thick washer for me. And I found this little machine screw that's like it's got its own tap. It's like got a slot and then it's tapered. It'd be one of those machine screws for probably machine assembly where they didn't actually cut the threads, the screw as it went in cut the threads. So I've pre-done it. This winds in there nicely. So that was great to find that, and I was contemplating putting a little bit of grease on the end here, but I've opted not to, just because you know it's going to get a lot of dust and crap there. So that's it, in it goes. So one more time. Where is it? There it is. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to have any trouble with that. That's great. A working steering lock. Well, I am nearing the end now, but it is down to those little 1% jobs. I will sort of clean up these plastics a bit once it's all together, give the bike a bit of scrub over, but I've got these brake line guides. This one's sort of just bent, but this one's actually all broken. While I'm at it, I've got a chunk missing of this clear plastic outer coating, so what I'll do is I'll undo the brake line this end, and I can slip these on. Then I can also slip on a bit of clear heat shrink, followed by a short piece of black heat shrink at the top, just to tidy all this up. Well, that worked quite well with this heat shrink. Happy with that. The new guides. I have put a new clutch and perch on just because I do need to mount mirrors. This is just an aftermarket White's brand, that's all good. But these are genuine Kawasaki mirrors that came in the box of bits for this bike. And so did this single perch just for mounting the mirror. And guess what? No chance of that fitting in here. So I'm not waiting around for another one. I am just going to drill and tap it out. I just checked this tap, winding it in this one. So I've got the right pitch and size. So I'll drill that tap it, mirrors on, tank on, seat on, and I think I'm about ready to fire this bike up and check that I've got working lights now from a running stator and regulator, and if that's all good, then I can just do the last bit of wire, tidy up, and then I think I'm done. It's the bike that just keeps on giving. I've just gone to put this cover on, at least see how it fits up, the front disc cover. And one of the bolts actually goes into the axle and it's snapped off. So I've got to now drill that out. So I've got, looking at it, I think this is the right size here. I think it's M8. So I've got my trusty old little KC set and my DeWalt. I've found over the years we're just going to start with a 3mm drill bit in the center, and actually the way it's snapped off, it's almost like I've got a little, it's almost been center punched already, a bit weird. So I'm going to start off on that and slowly work my way up bigger to a point where I might be able to pick out some of the old bolt from the threads and then send in the tap. So I don't think that'll be too hard, but still, what a pain. Oh Lord, won't you buy me a new shiny bike lift? My knees are really hurting. Alright, that wasn't too hard. Don't quit my day job, you reckon? Alright, point taken. Just a tiny bit of Loctite I put on these, not much. Ah, now that's retro. All right, well, that was a bit of a false start. I thought I'd be ripping up some dirt soon, but it turns out no such luck. The tank that I thought was good was leaking fuel all over the place, so I had to stop, which means that tank will have to go off to hopefully be repaired by some plastic welding. But that now leaves me with this tank as my only choice for now, so I do have to sort out this bracket now, and I was going to MIG that on. I'd probably fill it with some argon first, but then I thought about it a bit more and thought, oh, we'll just braze it on. So I'll do that now, along with, while I've got the oxy out, I may as well blow some dents out of these pipes. So old mate, obviously, while I'm doing mine, wants his done, which that's all good. So I've actually got 3 pipes to do now. This one is the second KDX pipe that I have, and the main dent is actually across 2 seams, which is the extra thick part of the pipe. So hopefully I'll have some success there. I'll get on with that. Well, that's it for part 1 of this video. I hope you join me for part 2, where we take a look at blowing out some dents out of the exhaust, the fuel tank issues, getting the bike running and taking it for a test ride and getting it out onto the test track. Then after that, I'll take it for licensing together with the Suzuki RGV Pepsi edition. So stick around for that. Well, if you like that video, you know what to do, and I'll see you on the next one.